my coach, Mary Anne Gillespie.
That was perfect. Perfection.
Not scared, embarrassed.
Top 5 careers who make the most amount of money. Number 1 was actually a realtor.
Not the slave part.
Are you serious?
I don't need a coach because I don't need to be held accountable.
I love people who say that.
How did we finish last night?
I'm going to take you to that next place.
There's non-negotiables.
I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah, that's for damn sure.
Why would I not be fired?
From wine country to cottage country, real estate is all about lifestyle. I'm Andrew Perry, and welcome to That Fine Life.
Welcome back to another episode of That Fine Life podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Perry. This is the show where we talk to entrepreneurs, salespeople, and business coaches.
Yes.
And we find out what it takes to live that fine life. So today we have a very special guest, my coach, Mary Anne Gillespie.
Oh, that was perfect. Perfection.
Yes.
I
You know
like it.
why? It's because my phone always autocorrects it to put the S after the P and before the E.
Are you sure it doesn't, like, when I call your phone, it doesn't say something entirely different, like, oh no, or don't answer?
No, that's Crystal's caller ID for you.
Got it. I don't doubt it.
So, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. But before we kind of get into it, I remember when I first reached out to you. It was like 6 years ago. How long have we been working together?
Oh God, it's been like, I think 4.
4 in and
I think 4 now.
So 6 years ago, I reached out. I don't know what I said. I can't even remember. I sent you a DM, and basically you just said you're not ready.
I did.
Basically,
I'm like,
just shut me right down.
Boom.
But I definitely appreciated that because it made me, when I came back, just fully ready.
yeah.
So
100%.
why not, for people who don't know you, you're the CEO of Red Apple Coaching.
Yes.
You've got a
Heck of a
incredible pass.
I know.
Pass in terms of coaching and development and all
Yeah.
that. So how did you get into it? All that kind of stuff, and we'll just kick it off.
That's actually really good. So I started ages ago. So when I used to be the youngest vice president of business development in my city, and I'll never forget the day I was sitting there. I was in the local newspaper, and they're like, "This is the person." It was called the female to watch in the city, and so they did this whole big spread. They came out to my house, and they're like, "She's nailed it." I landed Google as an account. And so they made me VP of business development for this large software firm. And I was like, this is amazing. And I was just a puppy. I was a little kid. And I remember just going, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden I was like, let's shake it up a little, right? Like something didn't feel like it was in alignment. And I remember, no word of a lie, I was reading the Guinness Book of World Records, like just randomly, and having a coffee, reading through it. And it was like the top 5 careers who make the most amount of money. And I remember just looking at it. Number 1 was actually a realtor. And I was like, that's incredible. And I'm like, huh. And then I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's not that hard to get your license. And I was like, this is incredible. So long story short, I looked up and I said, I went and approached, I said, who's the number 1 real estate agent in Canada? And I found him. He happened to be in my city. I'm like, how weird is that? So I approached him. I was like, look, I'm really great at what I do. I'm super young, upcoming. I'm like, how do I get in your circle? I want to work with you. I want to learn the best of the best. How's the best? And he's like, well, you don't have a real estate license. And honestly, he's like, I don't have any openings. Yeah. I knew nothing. He's like, so you can mentor with me and I'll hire you as my slave, as I like to say it. And I was like, okay. And he says, but I want 1-year commitment. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, what makes you successful? And he says, 2 things. He says, I'm excellent at listings. I can get any listing. And he goes, I'm really, really skilled at that. And he says, and I have a coach, and his name's Howard Brinton. And I remember saying, okay, now Howard, if you know anything about him in the coaching industry, he was the superstar of coaching. So anyway, so I basically sat back and I said, okay, I will come and work with you as your slave for almost nothing for a year. And I said, but I want to sit in on every listing appointment that you do. Yeah. And I want to listen to every single coaching call that you have. And he says, deal, done. So I did. And it was at that moment that I was like, I thought Howard Brinton, I was like, you are like a god. I'm like, it was like gold coming out of his mouth. I was like, why would nobody ever hire coaches? So then when I finally left that team, I ended up running a team of 12 bar agents underneath him, and we did great, but I ended up saying I want to go out on my own, and I went out on my own. I became Rookie of the Year, 80 deals my first year, $1 million my second year, top team owner, and then I was like, I just love coaching.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of like, it evolved, and then I took over Keller Williams as just a small office, And I was like, I just want to rewrite coaching program. You have 80% of the agents not selling anything. And I'm like, I can do something here. I knew it. And so I just took everything that I learned, I put it into play, and I was like, this is where I belong. And then I just moved up and up and up since then and created the #1 office in the world. And for production, several years, and every year that I coached in that office, it was #1 worldwide. And then opened my own company after running Keller Williams coaching. And then it just evolved and evolved and evolved. And I wake up, I love it. I go to bed, I love it. I love coaching, like everything about it.
Yeah.
It's where I belong.
And you said something interesting about, not the slave part, but.
Yeah. Yeah. Politically incorrect, I guess.
Well, I mean, but basically, right?
Oh, when he paid me, yeah, I was a slave.
Right.
It's the closest thing to slavery in Canada.
But that mentality, and, because every time I hear something and I hear people speak and they say something that, has meaning, I'm always trying to relate it to my circumstances or my experiences. And so as soon as you said that, I immediately thought of everybody who wouldn't take an opportunity like that, and the people that would. So first thing, Crystal came into my mind because she joined me on every single listing appointment.
Yep.
And, she wanted to know exactly, how I got to my level.
Yeah.
And I said, I had a business coach. Why don't you go talk to Mary Anne? And you know what? It's her first few sessions, and she's grown so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But like I wasn't able to give her constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't take it. And, we had to work so closely with her and just explain, like, this is how you grow.
Yeah.
This is how you grow. You learn and you take those criticisms and you apply them. And
Absolutely.
And I've been doing these emails every morning for over a year, but I haven't done it consistent, but we have over 300. And, today's email was, you can have all the skill in the world.
Yep.
But if you're not taking action, it means absolutely nothing.
100%.
Right?
100%.
And so what I like about the story that you just told me is that you said, okay, how do I become the best? He's telling you how, and then now you're actually going and doing it.
Always.
Right.
Always. I mean, you can learn. I can't even remember what the quote really is. I'll forget it and it'll come back to me later. But it's like, you can be like, there's so many people that are book smart and they're just like fantastic. And it's like, and then you sit back and you're like, just go. And I think it's whatever holds somebody back. It's interesting. It's like to leave that career, to be marked in the local newspaper as the female to watch in business. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I just pivoted completely. I was like, you have to trust that instinct too. But at the same token, I was like, yeah, you've got to just go. And I knew at a very young age, the value of mentorship, the value of, being in the right circle with the right people. But also it's like, you have to ask people, like, what makes you successful? Okay, great. Like, let me be part of that. Get into that ecosystem, and like the money comes later. Don't worry about it.
And so how do your top clients,
Yeah.
how do they, effectively use coaching so it actually benefits them? Like, what's your most ideal client? And how do they take advantage the most?
I think like the biggest thing about, for me, when you're with my coaching clients, they know my pedigree of where I come from is also like, it's extreme. Like, so, I do Ironmans. I do like 3 to 5 Ironmans a year. I'm an all-world athlete in that area, but also at the same token, like I came from nothing. I was like, literally when my family passed away, I lived on the streets for a year. So it's like, how many people do that? Not many people. So I have a very low tolerance for excuses.
Yes.
Right? It's like low tolerance level. I believe like real estate is a really easy business. If you're willing to just understand, to give everything you've got to it, you're going to be rewarded so significantly. It's, I was just in Africa and they said the same thing. I was talking to a bunch of people in Africa. They're like, what do you do for a living? I'm trying to explain coaching. And they're like, wait a second. All they have to do is lead generate, and they can make $15,000 to $20,000. These are people who make $80 a month. They're like, I don't understand what physical labor. I'm like, well, there really isn't a lot of physical labor. And like, you can see everybody's face in Africa. They're talking to, they're like, what? They're like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. And so I think like to take advantage of it is you have to understand. I think what makes my coaching really good is my clients know there is no excuse. It's like, if you're going to give me an excuse, it's got to be pretty big.
Yes.
So to take advantage of it is to really understand that I have a strict policy. If you're not going to be coached and you're not going to do it, then taking full advantage is let me hold you accountable. Let me hear what you want, use it, take advantage of it. But when I tell you, like, let's go, you could go harder and you should go harder. And here's your numbers, go all in on it. So I think to take full advantage is to say, let the accountability and let somebody push you to where you've never gone before.
Right.
Cause I've gone there.
What do you, and maybe this is kind of the same, a similar question, but what do you say when somebody says, I don't need a coach because I don't need to be held accountable?
I love people who say that.
Or because I have people reach out to me all the time.
Exactly.
I've sent a couple of people your way over the last couple of weeks. And you know what? The couple of the people, they keep coming back to me and asking. I'm like, if you haven't fucking hired her yet, stop asking me questions. But it's like, okay, so like, does she hold you accountable? Yeah. She's like, I don't really need that.
Oh, you do.
What do you mean you don't need that?
Yeah, you do.
If all she does is hold me accountable, then I don't think that's going to work.
Well,
what do you say?
I think with people like that, it's like, so Tony Robbins refers to it, and it's called no man's land, right? So it's like this place that I think a lot of people sit quite often in their lives. And what happens is they want to get somewhere, but they're like not in any pain where they are. So they're kind of like, whether it's the income that they're making or something along those lines, and they're going, well, I'm not poor, but I'm not like killing it. And I kind of want to go there, but man, I'm so comfortable here, right? So they're comfortable. And we call that no man's land, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And it's like, accountability is not about saying, do the same activities. Accountability is saying, I'm going to take you somewhere you've never gone before, and you are going to crumble like a little freaking baby. and that is going to happen. That shit's going to go down. You are going to feel like you are going to see that dark little hole that's going to make you feel like you went from here to here, and they're just not ready for it yet. They want to stay comfy. They want to be in no man's land. They have the dream of going somewhere. It's like, no, man, if you want to be held accountable, like, I'm not going to hold you accountable to what you're doing now.
Right.
I'm going to take you to that next place.
That's
and
right.
that next place, like from the Ironman perspective, I'll use that. Like, when you're doing an Ironman race, you can train. But when it's race day and you have no music and you have to do 16 hours of three activities back to back and you're racing, you are living in a complete dark hole. I know what that dark hole looks like. And if you don't have the mental capacity to get through it, you crumble. So having a coach and accountability is very different. It's it's that person that's going to say, look, you've done, let's say 250,000. You've done $250,000 of GCI every year, and you keep saying that you want a team, and you keep saying that you want to hit that $500,000 mark. Great. You want to be accountable? Tell me that's your goal. I'm here. We're going to do it. I'm like, and that's where people buckle, because they're telling you that they want it, but they're freaking terrified. Right.
Because the way I picture it is that, let's just say, you need to do 5 deals. You
100%.
need to make 100 calls.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have a coach. You're kind of coasting. You're making $300K.
No man's land.
Do I really need to make calls? Like, really, what's the big deal? Next week, I've got a couple appointments. I'll probably lock it in, and I'll probably sell them, and then I'll get up to 350 by the end of the year. No problem. And then anything could happen.
Yeah.
Bad things, obstacles,
anything,
health,
COVID,
anything, right?
Right, anything.
And now you're sitting here, you're like, shit, where's my pipeline? Well, I don't actually have one, because I never completed the tasks that I needed to complete, that we all know we need to complete.
100%.
And that's another thing that really shakes me, is that, okay, it's not as bad as the $80 a month, thing, but
not as bad. No, that's pretty bad.
But I used to work at LA Fitness, and I was really freaking good at it.
Yeah.
I manipulated the numbers here and there. I tend to do that. But hey, you know what? It's only because, and we can get into this too, it's only because there's non-negotiables, right? 60 calls a day, 10 appointments a day, and I was doing 120 calls.
Yeah.
Maybe 85 of them were real, you know? But I knew I was doing my shit. But anyways, I was working my ass off.
I knew it.
And I was doing it all for a $25 commission.
Yeah.
$25.
I know.
And these folks have all the opportunity
Yeah.
to do the same amount of work that I just described and make $25,000.
Yeah.
So it really shakes me, you know, when you people have these types of opportunities in front of them and they just don't really take it.
How do you think I feel in coaching? It's like I sit back sometimes and like I'll hear, like I literally just before I came in here, I was doing a call for somebody who's like, I really want to get coaching, but you know, and they're talking like that. And I'm going, man, like I think where it comes down to as well is that people are so afraid to dream bigger. And there's such a stigmatization sometimes against money or, you know, whatever. It can be sometimes associated with greed. And I'm like, you have to get really okay with making a lot of money and be okay with it. And just be like, it's kind of like limited mindset. Yeah. So you have an abundance mindset and you have a scarcity mindset. And I think what's happened in a lot of generations and a lot of things in COVID is it's put us in this scarcity mindset. And if you think abundance and you're like, man, like I just like don't see a ceiling around anything. And you also have to remember, like, man, you got one life to live. Like, so experiential wise, like you have one life to live. I have seen it in my own life. Like I've lived it. It's like you are here today, you're gone tomorrow.
That's
like
right.
Live the biggest, fullest, like live your potential. And like, just do it, like live your potential, like get into it. Like all you have to do is like, you hear this like drama and it's like, I'm trying to explain in Africa. I'm going, they're like, I don't understand. They're like, I don't get it. Why can't they make phone calls? It's hard. What's hard? Like they don't understand. And it's like, I'm not sure. And I'm like, I really couldn't tell you. And then in their heads, they're just like, so how many people are in your city? Like, well, they call it a village. They said, how many people are in your village? I'm like, 1 million people in our village. And they're like, well, why don't they just go knock on doors and see who wants to sell? I'm like, well, they can, but it gets a little cold. And they're like, cold? They're like, I don't understand. It's like 120 degrees here. We do it. And I'm like, so you see these parallels. And I think a lot of the times we've become so comfy and complacent and used to excuses. And I think that also ties back into that whole accountability thing is people are terrified to get a coach. That's why so many life coaches or, you know, friendly coaches exist because they want to stay in that comfort zone. But even looking back at Crystal, you know, I said to her, I left her a voicemail. I'm just like, you better get your shit together. Last week, I was like, you better get your shit together. Your numbers were not okay. They're not great. You want to get somewhere. That's what we're doing here. I'm like, get your shit together. Let's go. This is your voicemail, you know, and she's receptive to it. She's like, you're right. That's great. I got a message back.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
there's people that I have talked to
Yes.
that weren't so receptive.
Yes.
And which is totally fine because when people aren't receptive to what I'm speaking and what I'm pushing, it's fine because now it makes my life easier. We've just trimmed the fat a little bit. But we've talked to some people that they're like, you know what? Mary Anne and I just did not get along.
Nope.
I'm like, no shit.
You're like,
I can definitely understand that from their perspective, not
100%.
mine. But at the same time, let's think about it this way. So when I first talked with you on the phone, I had a senior vice president named Mike Rickert. He's the vice president of LA Fitness in Canada. And that's how he would talk to us. Yep. And it was just simple as that. It's like, and it was at LA Fitness, it was very corporate American, right? It was more of a threat.
Yes.
And like, if you don't do it, you're fired, and we got to move on. And it's like, and I'm like, okay, and that just made sense. Yeah, I'm not producing. Why would I not be fired?
100%.
Right. So I just think that, you know, yes, okay, you just brought up that there's some lifestyle coaches that like to keep you in this comfortable state, but I just truly believe that. Imagine you. Okay, put it this way: you were my personal trainer. Oh, right. Just pretend that. So, and then now we're at the gym together, and I'm like, hey, look. What's the first thing you and I talked about? What are your goals? What do you want to
100%.
accomplish? Go to a personal trainer. Personal trainer says, what are your goals? What do you want to do?
Yep.
I want to grow my arms. Okay, good. This is what you need to do it. Yep. Okay, good. Let's do it. Fine. I'm signed on. Let's do it. You get into the workout session, and you're going like this. You're like, oh, yeah, that feels pretty good. I think we're basically wrapped up here.
Yep.
No, that's not how you do it. You got to give me 10 more.
Yeah.
Now one more. Now one more. And imagine if you spent all of this money on a personal trainer and they're like, oh man, yeah, that's it for me. And the trainer was like, yeah, okay, good job.
Good job, Betty.
You would never see any physical difference. So hiring a business coach like yourself that pushes people, you see the difference in your bank account.
Well, that's why you hire a coach. Like, I mean, you can hire for fun. Here's how I always say it. It's like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Yeah, that's for damn sure. And I've owned that. I am like so super happy with that. But I always look at this way. I'm very confident, like to the point where I would put money down on it, that if you want to improve your business and you want to have more success and you want more finances and you want somebody to hold you accountable to getting there and show you the path to get there, I have the accreditation to do
Absolutely.
it. So when I
100%.
look back at some of the people who are like, I had a few people that were, like they started and they're like, I don't like it. Like they kind of wussed out. And I was like, no problem. I've looked at their numbers.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, I'm glad. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad. Like, because if you want to stay in no man's land, you can find excuses for everything. But you're like, look, the one thing I do when somebody works with me is I say, look, I am going to push you. And I'm going to make you uncomfortable. And this is a journey. And if you don't like that, you've got to be upfront with it, because my responsibility is I'm hired not to be your best friend.
That's
I
right.
can't be your best friend, because if I'm your best friend, then we're not going to get to where we need to get to. Like, we'll be best friends when you get there. When you get there, we'll be best friends. But until you get there, it's like, my job is to really pull you apart and get you there. And that means you have to evolve and become a different person. And those people that kind of like revolt against it, they probably, I would say, they don't have a good communication because they can't express it.
Yes.
They say they want something, but then they revolt back, and then it's a blame game. Oh, she's not the right fit for me. Okay, sure.
Right.
Sure. That's what it is all about. But not every coach is for everybody.
That's right.
But at the same token too, it's like the numbers tell the story. Where are they a year later? Where are they 6 months later? And some may work out, some may not. But if it comes down to it, I have 26,000 billable hours. It's like, at this point, it's like whatever. But I did have I had a swim coach once, and he wasn't a swim coach, like meaning he wasn't the right fit for me. I was drowning in the water, and he didn't know how to sort of work with me on it. And so I moved to a different coach, and I had better success.
That's right.
Now he's a really good swim coach. So it's not also like in that same sentence, sometimes the fit of where I wanted to go, he was a high level swim coach.
Yeah.
And where I started was not the right fit. I was so junior, I could barely swim. So he didn't know how to get down to my level.
Right.
That would be also an area of weakness. Sometimes if you're going to bring in a big kahuna, you have to be willing to do that work. And sometimes the gap also in coaching can be too big, to be fair.
Right, but it's the same thing, like, even with personal trainers. If you're not going to do what they're telling you to do, they don't want you as a client, because your body is basically their resume. So it's the same thing.
That's
If you don't want... If you know that, Andrew, you're actually not doing what I'm telling you, and your stats reflect my resume. So if
Like
you're not
joining
going
a
to
team.
listen to it, then please.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's like joining a team too. It's like if you want to sell a shit ton of houses, don't join a team that has 16 people on it and 2 listings.
That's right.
Like get real. Then don't blame the team leader and be like, oh, well, I wanted to do that. It's like, okay, fine. But also, like, another example in the fitness world, also is like, look, if you want to go to the Olympics, and you hire an Olympian coach, you got to do what they say.
Yeah.
Like, otherwise you're never going to make it there because it's
That's
too
right.
competitive.
That's right.
That's my thoughts.
I
I like that question. Some people are going to cringe on that one.
Yeah, but you know what? It's the same thing. Is that it's the same when we had our coaching calls, because now I've have Mary Anne speak with Crystal as she helps develop our sales team, but with me, I was either excited to take the call or I was embarrassed.
Yes, I know.
Not scared.
No.
Embarrassed, because scared. A little bit scared.
Well, a little scared, but like.
So, and that's what, so at LA Fitness, we had 8 a.m. conference calls and then a 4 p.m. So the 8 a.m. was, how did we finish last night?
Yeah.
What are our appointments for the day?
Yeah.
4 p.m. was, how did we finish for the day?
Yeah.
What are our appointments for the night? And
High accountability.
man, I was so amped up. I would come in early just to vocalize the call.
Even though you faked your numbers sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never faked the sales.
Okay, never faked the sales.
Never faked the sales. There's no way around that.
I love it.
But when things But and the reason why you don't fake the numbers unless you're already doing well is like when things go bad. We had this conversation this morning. When things go bad or not your way, things get exposed. Because they're like, why are we always talking about this when we don't have any production? You don't have any problem when we're selling. I'm like, bing, there you go, right? So we're getting there. We're getting there. Where was I then? So when things are going tough, and no, you know what? I want to recycle it back to our original thought, which was me being embarrassed. Okay, so I was super stoked to get on these phone calls at 8 a.m. So full of energy. Yeah. Right now, we're kind of struggling with people even remembering to check in because we also have now a Facebook group called Daily Check-ins. So 8 a.m. and 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why you're not excited to post into the daily check-in. Yeah. And it's obviously because they've got nothing to post. Because I make them put 0. They're like, well, it's so discouraging that I've got to put 0 in every day. I'm like, yes, I know, but that 0 means that you're making 0. So I guess what would you say to get, those agents that are in a slump a little bit more energized and passionate about getting back out there?
I think, when you're feeling that, and it's because that is flushing it out, that's high level accountability. And some people, they look at that posting the 0, they're like, like that's embarrassing. But the reality is that when, unless somebody has a disability, there's nothing, and you have to work with people on your team who have disabilities because it's a real thing out there right now on teams, and you have to work with that. So unless somebody had a disability, I would say that's a really good thing to do, is to flush out that 0. What I like to do is I like to say create mentorship programs for those people within the team. I like to take the top producer, and I really do, not for a long period of time, but to give that person a little bit more oomph, because it's very hard. It's really hard for them. And I can always understand because I came from nothing, so I get it. But I would take that 0 person and I would say, here's the thing. Do you want to be better? Like, that's the first question I'd ask them. I said, do you want to change? Do you actually want this? And if that agent says, I actually really do. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed. I mean, this is really hard for me. And I'd say, great. And here's what you're going to do. For 1 week straight, you are going to shadow mentor. You are going to do the activities of my top performer in the team. You're going to call if they call. You're going to work the hours they work. You're going to, open house the way they open house. You're going to be mentored by them for 1 week. And if they say jump, you're going to say absolutely. And how high would you like me to do it?
Yes.
You've got to do that.
Right.
And they do it. And so you'll see a remarkable change because sometimes we don't know the destination. And John Maxwell taught me that on this wicked trip we took once. And he's like, and it's in the book, Good to Great. If you can't get on a bus and not know where you're supposed to go. And sometimes we assume because we're at this level on teams and we've been doing it for so long, we're like, why is that person, like, what is wrong with them? But you have to sometimes chunk it down and go, when I was there, if I was this person, and like, you got to go so deep into our own exploration to be like, why is this happening? And reality is they don't know the path. So it's like getting on that bus, not knowing the destination because they have no idea. And we forget that. So it's like pair them up with the best, say just for 1 week, let's do this. It's not longer than that. Then when you see the results, the person gets it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're posting 2, 3, 4. It's a great thing to do.
See, I like that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because we think we do that. We're like, okay, well.
Yeah, we do. We definitely think we do.
Well, like, hey, reach out to Crystal if you have problems. But it's never been like, no, if you want this, you're forced
to work with
Crystal.
You will be Crystal's shadow. You will be you clear your calendar. You will live her life. Because if you know Crystal, like, well, which you do, like I know Crystal, like she's at the gym at 6 a.m. You're getting your ass to the gym at 6 a.m. You're going to be Crystal. You're going to get the endorphins going at 6 a.m.
Actually, I'm at the gym at 6 a.m. Crystal's at the gym at 6:37.
I'm 4 a.m. Everybody, watch that shit.
But she's up. She's up.
We're a very fit crew, but I mean, but it would be like that's what I would say because it starts with the behavioral habits of the best in the industry, and it's like, okay, well, Crystal's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd be like, you're going to be at the gym. Well, I don't want to get to the gym. No, that's not the point. Her endorphins, your endorphins, my endorphins. Our endorphins are banging by 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
We got dopamine running through our system by 10 a.m. We are lit. And it's like, no, your agents need to see that. And I think that whole habitual, it's like, do you want to be the best? Because if you do, you're going to shadow her, be her freaking shadow 7 days a week. and you're going. When she goes on a listing appointment and does an offer at 9:00 at night, you're her shadow. Get in your car. Let's go. It's so fun.
Yeah,
it's so fun
like
to watch.
that.
And then you sit them down after and you say, recap for the team what you learned, recap for the team how it was. And that agent almost instantly in a week changes.
Right.
Almost instantly.
Okay.
It's a shadow.
Well, I think I'm going to try that.
All of a sudden, I'm going to get all these people from the finance day team. Fuck
What
you,
have
Mary
you
Anne.
done?
Like,
What
what
have
did
you
you do?
done?
What did you do?
Yeah.
What did you do? Or all of a sudden, they're like, hate my team, gym at 7 a.m.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We have a fairly active team too.
Oh, you have a great team.
and it's good. And you know, they're all. Max was our sales leader.
I
for
saw
January.
that this morning.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, 3 deals. So
Max
he's
with
doing-
his Zoom videos, the lotion in the basket. He's always in a dark
He's in a
place.
dark room.
I love that guy. I'm so
yeah.
happy for him. It was good to see this morning.
That's you know what? I was just I don't know if I should say this, but I will. So when we first brought him on,
Yeah.
I was skeptical.
Yeah.
A little skeptical, and I feel like I can have a good read on people. I liked how he was professional, direct, showed up in a full suit. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's something I'm like, I don't know if he gets it. And Crystal was like, take a chance, like, you know, and it took him a little bit, but that kid is so, speaking to how you open up the podcast, he is so willing to do exactly what you've told him to do.
Yep.
And the issue over the first 12 months was not that he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was just having trouble finding the confidence to do it the right way. And so now he's got it. So we're
He's
really
got
excited
it.
about him.
It takes 3 years to get confidence if
Oh
you're a
my
new
gosh.
agent in the business. Like, that's your minimum is 3 years. It's like, but again, you have the insight to say, do we forget that? Do we forget that? Because we're so far removed from it that it's like, do we remember
That's right.
how scared we were?
Yeah. All you got to do is sit in the front seat with your partner and say, where the hell are we going? Because that's the most frustrating thing. Where are we going? I don't know. Where are we going? What do you mean? I can't start the damn car if we don't know where we're going.
You have no idea. It's the craziest things. But it's like, it's really like to see Max develop into that is also proof of a great team, great leadership, great patience. But it also is like when I hear Crystal was like, yeah, and you were like, you know, that's why you have great leadership.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's really good. You play well with each other. I like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, we have to. So what do you think, you know, the number one underlying talent, skill, attribute between all of the very best of your clients? What do you think is the one takeaway that you think has led them, or has led them to their top spots?
Yeah, I would say the number one attribute, like hands down, is you are going to get your ass kicked in real estate. You are going to be, we never talk about this freely. And I think it's very important to talk about it freely because I think it's very elusive. Like you see all these social posts that everybody's killing it, everything like that. There are dark days. There are really dark days for almost everybody. On any given day, these megas are either being sued or they've got turnover on their teams or they're losing stuff or market share. They have $100,000 a month expenses in marketing. And what you have to remember is that they followed the same journey as everybody else, but we don't talk about the darkness. We don't talk about how lonely it can be, how terrible it feels to have a client for 10 years, that maybe you had and they don't use you, or a best friend not use you, or something along those lines. And what the number one resiliency is probably what I would say it is the ability to get back up very quickly when you get punched in the gut and to believe in yourself. You have to see it and believe in yourself. And that intrinsic voice, they all have it. They all saw the vision and they made a commitment and said, I'm going here. I'm going to get here. But they understand I'm going to get kicked so many freaking times and it's going to be dark and lonely and all of the above, but I won't stop. And it's that ability to say, I know it. I know I'm going to be down. I know there's going to be very tough roads ahead, but I will never give up on what I want to build. And that's what they're constantly doing. There's no finish line for them. They're just going, I want to get to where I want to get to. And they're relentless in their pursuit of it. And they're very, 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 and they never stop learning.
Right.
So it's like this whole accumulation of things. But I would say it's like they've all gone through. I know some of the darkest stories that they've been through. And I know that sometimes I'll have a coaching call with, one of our team owners that has like 200 agents, and the team owner will be like, I don't really want to coach today. All I really want to do is just talk to somebody about how hard this week has been. like how hard this has been, because
Yeah.
I just need to
Yeah.
get this off my chest. And I just want to say, like, this is how dark it was. This is how tough it was. This is how I feel right now. And I need to just say it, because if I don't, like, I feel like I have nowhere to go and say it. And then they pick it right back up the next day.
Yeah, that's very well said, and because we deal with that all the time, and I'll have what I've been really pushing to our team over the past 6 to 12 months is that, look, if you're reaching out to a client that's either ghosting you or fizzing out or whatever, it's just super simple, like 3-4 sentences. Look, are you still looking to make a move? If not, totally fine. And you just move on. You've done your last call to action, and that's it, and you just move on. And that's just how I've always dealt with, these bad situations that you're talking about. Now, what also I think is a big piece of an entrepreneur's journey to the top is the entrepreneurial schedule.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Let's just pretend that nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. What does that look like? And, why is it important to time block like that?
Yeah, I think, because entrepreneurial time system, we've grown up with a time system that's very corporate. So you're a child, you go to school at a certain time. Your school bus is like 8 o'clock in the morning. Your lunch is 12 o'clock, okay, or whatever it is in school nowadays. And haven't been a child in a long time. Yep. And anyway, so then the day's over at like 3 o'clock, and then you have your snacks, and you have it's so structured to end at 5 o'clock. Dinner's coming up at 6. Like, we've lived that our whole life. And then people they go into that whole transitioning into a corporate environment, and then they're having their first job, and they've got to check in at this time and then check it at that time, and they still have lunches. So what happens is, when you go into the entrepreneurial world, you take what you've learned, and then I'll ask to see an agent's schedule. I'll go, let's see your schedule. And legit, I can tell you 99% of the time I see the word lunch in there. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, you're an adult. You don't need to be told to have lunch at 12 o'clock. What is this shit? And so I'll see lunch in there, and I'll be like, oh man, they're still stuck in corporate time zones, or their day will end at 5 o'clock, or they'll start at 9. Yeah. And I'm like, look, you know what? This is not good. So the entrepreneurial time system is beautiful. It was done by Dan Sullivan, and he created this whole system that I think is amazing, where you segue your days into focus days, which are money-making days. So your brain space can really be into money-making. And then your buffer days are completely about being a CEO, and then you have one free day a week off.
Right.
It's brilliant.
Wait,
brilliant.
One free day off.
One full free 24 hours.
So you're saying that in order to provide the best culture and service to my agents, I should give them one full day off?
100%. Well, first of all, one full day, just one. Let's not don't make it a day and a half, but it should be a 24-hour block. And I think this is something that I see that drives me bananas in this industry. It's like we're on this clock where it's 24/7, go, go, go. And there's no other career in the industry that you have to do that. So it's like you get one free day off a week. And one of my backgrounds is also neuroscience. Yep. And so I spend a lot of time studying the brain, what it needs. You need one friggin' day off a week. If you're not taking a day off, 24-hour clock, get a life.
Yeah.
Check out. Don't look at your emails. You have a team. Get somebody else. Do time for time with another agent if you're single. Shut it down for 24 hours and go play. What the effects it has on the brain is it's magnificent. It is the highest dopamine rush. Your brain, if you don't get 24 hours off, there's so many studies out there right now that actually show that your brain thinks that you're trying to kill it. If you don't give yourself a 24-hour time block and say, this is my day to play, go get a life, go enjoy yourself, go see friends you haven't seen before. Do not check your email. Don't jump into that shit. No work. I'm talking total disengagement from your clients, everybody.
That's right.
There's so many studies that show that if you don't do that, the brain enters this constant state of stress, and it's going, Andrew, you are working every day. You are not stopping. You are not giving me a rest. So I'm either going to make us sick, I'm going to make us exhausted, I'm going to give us something, or I'm going to try to kill ourselves here, because it's going to give you shit to slow you down.
I agree. I think as entrepreneurs, especially as team leaders and CEOs, you get so passionate about these things. When people can't believe it. I answer every single phone call. They're like, what if it's spam? Like, yeah, but what if it's not?
What if it isn't?
What if it isn't? And we get a lot of referrals from Toronto, and just so happens that a lot of the spam calls are like a 416 or a 647. So going back to the entrepreneurial schedule, what is a like a money making activity in your eyes? Why, I don't know why there's such a gray area to this, but what is a money making activity?
That's awesome. So a money-making activity, and remember this, if you're, the best way to look at the entrepreneurial time system is to think of like Tom Brady. Like think of Tom Brady. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
Like think of him in Boxers. No, I'm kidding. I'm only kidding. So if you're thinking of Tom Brady, you know, when he was a football player, you can think of it this way. His money-making activities are his game days. That's when he's all in game day. Like you are Super Bowl Sunday, it is like go for it. And that's when he's got to have the brain space, the power he is on. Okay, that's a money-making day in real estate. We'll talk about it in a second. His buffer day is his practice days. It requires a different level of energy. That's when we be CEOs. We more creative. We can just practice things. We can tighten up stuff in our businesses, really look at our P&Ls, all that kind of stuff. But his free day is when his body rests. And he's not doing it. So when he needs those, because obviously you're a top athlete. So, but he doesn't play in the Super Bowl and then all of a sudden stop the Super Bowl and say, yo, everybody, I got to take a break here. I gotta just call my accountant. He just has like a really quick question. Or like, I don't need to go get my hair cut. You know, I'm sorry the game's running late, but gotta go. Like he doesn't do shit like that. It's like, you got to remember a focus day is money-making activities, which means every single thing, it is your highest brain power. You got to wake up, have your workout, listen to your pump up music, your motivational shit, and then jump all in and be like, I am going to crush money making. I'm going to lead generate. I'm going to get my appointments. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make income. And that means anything that directly leads to an appointment that would lead or to a sale. It's nothing about, oh, I'm going to check my emails. That ain't money making activity. No. You are following up on old leads. You are converting. You are going for your highest use. That is your appointment booking day. That is your showings. That is running offers. Every activity that you do for a 24-hour time clock is all in until you hit that milestone for that day. If you say you're going to do 2 appointments, you don't stop at 5 o'clock. You get your shit together. You don't quit the Super Bowl.
Okay, so that's exactly where I was going to go to next. Yeah. Whereas, you know, I talked about this at Market Masters with a good friend of mine, Steve Zand, the Zand team in Guelph. I basically said, you know, it's because something happened in the meeting the day before. They said, or in the daily check-in that morning, I'm sorry, you know, and it was a team member, and they said, I'm going door knocking for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what does that mean? Well, like, I'm going to start at 12 and I'm going to end at 2. I'm like, okay, what's the goal?
Right.
Well, two contacts. Okay, so what happens if you don't get 2 contacts? Are you stopping at 2 p.m.?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, I dedicated 2 hours. I'm going to do 100 homes.
Yeah.
No. What's the point of even doing the door knocking if you're not going to even get the goal or result? So, you know, what I say is that we don't accept anything that doesn't have clear intention, clarity, and a measurable result. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, I'm making calls for 2 hours.
Nope.
You have to get serious about what is your intention and what is the measurable result.
You have to. And it's like, but it's also like, remember that the brain goes to where whatever your goal is. Okay, so if you're, for example, I wanted, you know, we talked about that. I saw this at the conference the other day that we're at, and it was like visualizing where you want to go. If your goal was to hit 2 contacts and do 2 hours, your brain works on goals. That's how it's designed. That's the only thing it loves to do. It's like you give it a goal, it'll accomplish it. If your goal is 2 hours of door knocking and 2 contacts, or 2 hours of door knocking, in your head, that's all it's going to attract. Right. So if you're sitting there and you're like, no, the whole concept of a focus day is to say it's a 24-hour clock. I'm going to door knock until I get one person who is actually going to say, yes, I'm thinking of doing something. It's impossible to do that in one session. I mean, you may luck out here and there, knowing your numbers is appropriate. That's a tier 3 level lead generation door knocking. Mm-hmm. So you kind of, you know, right. I don't think you're going to get it in 2 hours, but it's because that's where they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, like that's the reward. And the brain's going, cool, we'll do 2 hours of door knocking. They're never going to attract business in that 2 hours.
So it's like, when I'm on the assault bike, which I just found out is a thing, and it's also just the craziest thing, is like, you know, when the trainer turns his back, okay, all I need is 3 minutes. Well, his trainer's like, no, you need 3 minutes at 300 watts. And he turns his back. I'm like, okay, I I'm burning the clock. That's what I think about. And I'm like, wait a minute. I literally said the same thing to not burn the clock on your door knocking.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a result to
all you're
achieve, 10 cows or not 10 cows in a minute, but so interesting. And then another thing that I was thinking about during the podcast is like I tried, and this is just about coaching in general, and not to go off topic because we kind of already talked about it, but I used to work out with no trainer.
Yeah.
Then I hired a virtual trainer.
Yeah.
And the virtual trainer was just, he gave me workouts, but really at the end of the week, they're like, did you finish the workouts? I'm like, yeah, of course, but you're not seeing the results. And so I finally got an in-person trainer, and that's how I kind of view you, is that it's like, you can't get away with things.
Not with me.
Right? And they push you, and it's like one more, and this is why I've been thinking about it, because if you think about, if you're just going to the gym and you're just doing weights, so you're just doing weights like this.
Yeah.
Right? And you're working out an isolation muscle or whatever. With this type of training that we're doing, it's nonstop. It's like when you're doing your Ironman. It's nonstop. He's like, I'm like, don't I get a rest? He's like, your rest is when you go from that machine to that machine.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? But that's like 10 seconds. He's like, I don't care.
That's it.
And it's literally putting me through that dark hole that you're talking about, where I fucking hate my life and I hate him. And I'm like, I know you're and I'm screaming at him like, I know you're doing this to kill me. You just want to, I know it. And then
you do it.
And then you do it. And he's like,
it.
but he's so jacked. He's
exactly.
Like, yeah, okay,
he's
sure.
like, sure,
no problem. But you come out and you're like, I just did that.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's what the burning desire to sell is, especially for me.
100%.
You push me through all of that as a business coach and a sales coach. I get that deal. I've signed that confirmation of cooperation, and I've, firmed it up, and I get paid. I don't even wait to get paid for me to feel so fired up.
Yeah.
I just get the notice of fulfillment. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go.
You're
and it's just like, and then it's like, boom, now I'm on to the next one.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
It's a rush, and it's like, two things I'll add to that is like, so that's the whole point of me. I'm kind of that crazy because you can't hide. Like, you can never hide. A great coach, you can't hide from them. You know when you're being bullshitted, like, hands down. I know it when somebody's like, oh yeah, I made the context. No, you didn't. Like, I know my scripts and I know my shit, but there's a team that I'm visiting tomorrow and Sunday. And I'm being brought in because they have a major buyer gap. And so the gap is huge. And I'm looking and I'm going, something's wrong here. And they're like, oh yeah, we're doing open houses. I'm like, bullshit, you're doing open houses. Yeah. So I'm going live. They're scared to death this weekend, but I'm going live to all their open houses on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm like, oh, you think you're doing good? I want to see what you do at your open houses. Like, let's bring this shit on. And so it's great coaching because they're scared to death, but at the same token, I know we're going to see that they didn't take and implement. So sometimes you have to fix that. But getting back into the athletic training, it's like, that's the whole, like in our Ironman training, I took the last 5 months off because I had this, after World Championship in Finland, I had this weird on the plane, I got some weird blood clot. So I couldn't work out for 5 months. So all my coaches came back. I have 3 coaches in Ironman and they're all amazing. And we got to Worlds in like 5 years. It's like I didn't bike or swim 5 years ago. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah. So they're sitting there. And so we started back this week. And I was like, I call it daily exorcisms. I'm like, every day is like an exorcism, but every single thing in our world is computerized, tracked. It's like everything is put into an online program. So they look at it and they're just like, Mary Anne, what is this? And I'm like, and so like they come down hard, but it's like the value I see in that is, it's so substantial because when you realize that it's not to hurt you, your trainer's doing that, it's because they see something in you. Mm-hmm. They see it. They wouldn't have taken you on otherwise, but they see something in you that they're like, you, Andrew, can get from here to there, and I want to be part of the journey, because their rush is not just seeing you get there. Their rush is seeing you transform into somebody that you've always wanted to be, that you believe in, and they're going to push your ass until you get there. And then that's their dopamine. That's my dopamine, to see the clients go to the next level. Yeah, we're going to have fun this week and go to their open houses. Yeah. But when I see the buyer sales in 30 to 60 days go through the freaking roof, that's my dopamine. So it's like we all work together on that accountability, and it's a rush because it's like you're going to transform. It's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, it's super cool. Well, it's kind of like I saw your video the other day. We had this big staff meeting, and I was saying to you, it was hilarious because I was opening my Facebook or social media account at the same time. And then there's Andrew with no shirt on, pushing like shit all down, working out. And I'm like, there's a client. Oh, we gotta take that. I'm like, it was so good. But I could tell, like, you posted something, you're accountable. But I could tell that after, like, I could tell you were proud. You were really happy.
Absolutely.
Hated it in the moment, loved it later.
That is just one of my ways that I hold myself accountable, because at first I was just doing it like, okay, let's just wake up, pull my timestamp, and let's just keep myself accountable. And then what started to happen was other people, like, I've basically cut out drinking almost entirely. It's been a long time. But
when a family that owns a vineyard.
Yes.
Very interesting.
I stopped drinking on Sundays because it was really affecting my Mondays.
Yeah.
Anyways, and where I'm going with this is, like, there was a couple of times I fell off over the last couple of years. Maybe I was hungover or something.
Yeah.
And then people would, like, message me and be like, what's going on?
Are you okay?
Are you okay? You haven't posted this morning. And they're like, I really look forward to it because when I wake up, seeing you do it motivates me to get out there and do it. So now not only did it start as me holding myself accountable, but now other people are holding me accountable too.
I freaking love it. That's the whole point. And it's like, that's why it's also like, you have to have somebody who sees, like, I've always felt this, like, I've hired coaches for myself that haven't worked out. And it's amazing. And the only reasons they don't work out is because I can feel that they didn't believe in me. Like, I can feel it. And my first set of coaches for Ironmans and whatever, they didn't believe in me. They were like, they were like, you will never get to Worlds. They're like, you're just never, you don't swim. You don't swim, and you don't own a bike. They're like, how are you ever going to get to Worlds? Like, and I'm like, well, and I was 300 pounds, right? So they're like, so let's add that layer onto the cake. They're like, you're 300 pounds, you've never biked, you don't swim. Like, what the fuck? They're like, this is never going to happen. I'm like, you don't know me. And I'm like, so I looked for coaches that were like, they could see, a diamond becoming a diamond. You have to do a lot of chipping at the rocks, right? So it's like, you really look at that and you say, I got to find the right people who believe in me. And that's also a secret element, So that's something that's very valuable as well.
So what takes, we're almost out of time here, but what? I know, we could talk for 2 hours, 5 hours, but what does it take to go, what kind of mentality? Because I lost 30 pounds 2 years ago in like 3 months. For me, it was, I wouldn't say it was easy. It was difficult, but for me, that the way it all fell off was mainly diet. So I really didn't have to push myself like crazy. And to go from 300 pounds to where you are now, like what does that take to get there?
It was like, it took, the funniest thing about this story is that I didn't realize, I always say, like, I feel like I hate saying it, but I feel like I had reverse anorexia. I would look in the mirror and be like, I'm not that bad. And then I was like, it hit me one day. I was like, I went out with some friends and we took a group picture and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, what's happened in my life, right? And I remember it was like, you can't go through like all the stuff you've been through. Like, sometimes you fall off of it. And so I looked and I said, okay, I know diet, I know exercise. I get all that. I was doing marathons when I was 300 pounds. Like, I wasn't terrible. But there was an element missing. So I actually hired a food psychologist, and I worked with a food psychologist. They said it takes about 3 months to figure out what your triggers are, because there's a trigger that you have to find.
There certainly is.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, 3 months, I can do this. Like, what is it? And it was 3 months. He's like, girl, I can't find your trigger. And this is one of the best food psychologists in the world. Yeah. It took us 6 months to identify it. And we identified that my food trigger was actually deadlines. So, and I'm like, my whole life is deadlines. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, deadlines is your major trigger.
So when you complete a deadline, you want to eat?
No, getting to the deadline.
Okay.
Getting to it, the pressure of knowing that there's a deadline that has to be hit, like a project, of speaking of this, that. I just would go into this laser hole and I would just like grab. And I was like, focus. And like, I just would revert into really unhealthy eating habits. And we couldn't figure it out until 6 months later. When we identified it, that was when it all changed. And it was like, it changed. It did a 180. He's like, okay, replace this with that. This is what it is. And he identified all the ways to get through that. And it was remarkable. And what you have to remember is that, in truth be told, food is an addiction. And a lot of people don't realize it because it's a physical thing that you can see in people. And it is a form of addiction. So just like 100%. Alcohol is an addiction, and you may not see that on people, drugs are an addiction, sex is an addiction, all of that stuff can be to that extreme level. Yep. And if you treat food as an addiction, which I think it got to the point in my life, is that you have to be able to say, okay, you know what? I got myself into this. And just like any addiction, I have to change it because it's not healthy. You know, it's terrible. I was very unhappy. You know, I loved my life, but that, like, I'll never say being that size was ever something I was happy about. Mm-hmm. But I was also going like, it's an addiction. And I need to, every single day, I need to identify that I am a food addict. You know, and I'm comfortable saying it. And it's like, fuck. I mean, it's like, who cares? It's like some people can sit up and say it's more acceptable to be an alcoholic. And I'm like, not really. I'm like, you know, the only difference is like, yes, I have a habit that this is what happens. And, you know, I've got to be committed to it 100%.
Right. So it's almost like in business, you identified, you were able to isolate. Ooh. And then you could focus on that one problem and solving it. And you know, it's funny because mine's the not opposite, but mine's after the deadline.
Yeah.
Because I'm so clean until like, and it's like, I don't know. I think it stemmed from when I was a kid. Because like, if I eat all my dinner, I can have a dessert.
Yes.
So I make sure I finish all my dinner and then I have a dessert.
Yeah.
Or if it's like I complete something at work, at life, at, you know, it's because as soon as I'm finished the gym, I eat too, right? So it's like, as soon as I finish something, I want to eat.
Yeah.
So I need, because when I found out about my diagnosis, I was switching to full organic. And then I'm like, wait a minute, and zero sugar. I'm like, wait a minute. It's my trigger is also salty foods, because after salty foods, I really want something sweet. Like every time, especially at night.
You got a whole gamut of shit going on.
Right. So the hardest part was trying to find organic, sugar-free food that was also sweet that I could really enjoy.
Banana?
No. No. So the closest thing that I could get, they're not organic, I don't think, but are those made good?
Yeah, there's the jellies or the chewies?
No, the granola bars are my favorite with the little piece of dark chocolate. Yeah.
Nice.
So, but anyways, Mary Anne, thank you very much for coming. Let's end on food because I'm hungry.
Yeah, yum. Me too. No.
So, best place to get in contact with you to inquire about coaching or just to follow your journey?
I would say, you know what, go, two things. Go to my website at redapplecoaching.ca. You can book consultations there, find out everything about me, my journey, any events that we're doing. All the stuff is hanging out there. And, you know, my most active profile is usually typically my Instagram account, which is the Red Apple Coach.
Me too.
And that's where I play. That's where I like to play. So come see me there, and I'll be there always. And I'm always open. If you need any help, let me know.
That's true. I remember for so long, it took me so long to get your actual number because I wasn't allowed. I bugged you too much.
Very exclusive. I'm very exclusive in the sense of, you know.
I don't even know if it is your real number. I still don't know who's talking to me if it's your.
You're like, it could be, it could be not. But yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for having me. Like, this is so awesome. I love it. And you are amazing. So don't forget to sign up for your daily emails.
Yes, of course. So thank you all for watching and listening. Of course, we want you to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that crap. But we also would really like you to leave us a review on Apple and Spotify because it helps get this podcast in front of others who are looking to live that fine life. Thank you.